Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the TeaTime Podcast. I ordered some groceries from GoPuff an hour and a half ago, and it's still not here. And now I'm just hoping that it won't get delivered in the middle of the podcast. Otherwise, we might be going on a little field trip to the outside of my apartment building so that I can get my groceries. It is, once again, the awkward part of the TeaTime Podcast. I am waiting for people to arrive. So we're just going to do some basic intros and housekeeping stuff and things like that while I wait for some more people to arrive. If you're not already, make sure that you are following me on my other social media platforms. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Obviously, I'm on TikTok. I'm assuming that's what the majority of you know me from. If you just found this talk on stereo and you have no idea who I am, hi, my name's Hannah, and I'm a witch, and I talk about witchcraft and stuff on here. I'm also on Patreon, where the audios for these podcasts get posted the day after I do the actual podcast. And there's lots of other cool, fun stuff on there, too. So you should definitely support me on Patreon. You could also vote for future podcast topics as one of the cool, fun perks on Patreon. So this week, my patrons voted the left-hand path, talking about baneful magic. Before we get to that, though, there's one last housekeeping item, and this is an exclusive to you guys here on stereo and to my Patreon listeners. I am working on bringing goblin scoops back to my shop because they were so popular. So we're working on that. And I'm also going to be soon selling crystals on my shop. I don't have like a wholesaler yet. I really only just have a handful for right now just to get me started. And I'm still in school and I'm going to be moving soon and all this other mess of crap. But things are going to be going places and it's going to be cool. I already have a question. So let's see what it says.
Hi, Hannah. How are you doing today? Hope it's been a good one.
Thank you. I'm doing well. I got started on making deity candles for the last batch of orders that I got. I ordered a new set of bones today because of all the things that have been going around TikTok about coyote bones being closed. I do bone throws on my other TikTok page, which is just spirituality backup, and was using coyote bones because I didn't know that that was a closed practice. And once I found out that it was closed, I ordered fox bones and I did homework because I'm a student. So that's been my day. But, okay, we got another one.
Please ignore that request. I'm new to this.
Sorry about that. So, yeah, if you guys want to send me questions, comments, anything like that, there is a voice thing that allows you to do that. Sometimes it'll show me text, like what you're saying, and sometimes I just kind of have to guess and press play. But yeah, that's how that works. And with that being said, if you guys have any questions throughout the show, please feel free to send your questions throughout the time that I'm talking. I will have a section at the end of the show specifically for questions, but don't be afraid to say things to me during the show, especially if there's something that I say that doesn't come across clearly, or you're like, oh, I didn't understand that, or oh, my audio cut out. Can you say that again? You know, whatever the case might be, always feel free to ask questions. So today, we are talking about the left-hand path. Now, this does not mean to be left-handed, as some people were joking about. Funnily enough, fun fact, I actually am left-handed, so that makes this even more funny. Ooh, what do we got?
Can we ask questions that aren't necessarily about baneful magic?
Yeah, I understand that you guys probably have lots of questions about lots of different things, and yeah, if your question is, slightly off topic, that's okay too. I'm here to talk to you guys, and I have notes next to me, like a very loose outline that I want to follow. So even if we get off topic a little bit, I will very easily be able to get back on topic because I have those notes. I had another message.
Hey Hannah, which herbs do you recommend to substitute for certain herbs like lavender or tea tree and stuff? Basically, what pet safe herbs do you recommend for doing spell work because I don't want to accidentally poison my animals doing a spell pot or something like that.
That's a great question. Yeah, if we've got fur babies, we don't want to be doing anything with them. So off the top of my head, I know that rose and chamomile are pet safe. But a lot of that stuff you might just have to do online, like do some research, especially because certain herbs to cats might not be bothersome to dogs and vice versa and other animals. So it requires some research. But as far as I know, things like rose and chamomile are safe. So anyways, the left-hand path. Like I said, this does not mean to be left-handed, even though I actually am left-handed. The left-hand path in witchcraft relates to baneful magic. And the first thing that I want to talk about is, why do we no longer call it black magic? And why was it called black magic in the first place? So this starts hundreds of years ago. Really, it kind of has its roots in slavery. So I don't know the whole story because I obviously wasn't there, but to give a short summary, when we brought enslaved people from Africa to the Americas, they had their traditional magical practice like voodoo and, other things like that. And the European settlers in the United States were obviously aware of magical practices throughout Europe. Regardless of their opinions on it, they knew that it existed, right? However, when they saw these African people still using their African religions and their magical practices as enslaved people in the United States, they immediately assumed that it was bad and then coined it as black magic because it was used by Black people. So calling it black magic actually has very racist connotations behind it. So that's why we don't call quote unquote evil or bad or baneful magic, or not even that baneful magic is necessarily those things, but you know what I mean? That is why we don't call it black magic anymore or white magic, because it's the idea that black is bad and white is good. And we don't want to enforce those ideals. So instead of white magic, we say the right hand path. Instead of black magic, we say the left hand path. And some people are something in the middle, and that's totally fine too. But I just kind of wanted to give a little disclaimer of like, hey, we don't say black magic anymore. If you are reading certain books about witchcraft or magical practices, they might say things like black magic, white magic, especially if they're dated. And I think it's important to read older books about magic just to kind of see what people were doing 100 years ago in those communities. So just be aware that, yeah, there might be some outdated language in certain books that you read. Just make sure that you don't use that same outdated language today. So baneful magic is magic that is used with the intent of causing harm or destruction, or you want to get revenge or vengeance, or something along those lines. And it could be for the benefit of someone else. For example, if someone is being abused and you want to hex the abuser so that the person who is being abused will be safe, you could spin that in an ethical way, and I'm not here to condemn either path. I have performed left-hand magic on several occasions. So that's not what this is about. This is just supposed to be informative. And there's lots of controversy around, oh my God, you shouldn't teach people about baneful magic. You should. I absolutely think that we should teach people about it so that you can learn how to do it properly and safely should you choose to do so. I think a lot of people on Witch Talk will be like, here's how to curse someone. And it's like, I get it. You want to teach people, that's fine. But you want to make sure that people know that there's ways to do it safely. And there's different kinds of left-hand magic to do. Let's see what this voice message says.
Is the Return to Sender spell you did a few days ago, or before, like baneful magic?
So technically, yes, a return to sender would be considered baneful magic, because I was going through some really rough shit, and I was like, I'm gonna send this negative energy back to whoever sent it to me. So whoever sent those bad vibes my way probably got some bad vibes in return. Um, and again, not everyone's gonna be comfortable with performing that kind of magic. But I'll tell you what, it works. As soon as I, lit that candle and got everything ready, 20 minutes later, I had made like $200 from my shop and from affiliate codes and things like that. So shit works. You just got to be careful with it. So let's talk about the different kinds of left hand magic or baneful magic that one can perform. There's all different kinds, but there's three main categories, I guess we could say, that I'm sure you're all familiar with, but they're kind of used interchangeably. So I want to talk about the differences. So there's jinxes, hexes, and curses. Now, I'm sure we've heard all of these words, but again, I want to differentiate them because they're not the same thing. They all have their differences. So a jinx is something really minute. For example, I don't know if you guys have ever watched Golden Girls or have seen this meme, but there's a scene. I've only seen a handful of episodes of Golden Girls, I'm going to be honest, so I don't know everyone's names. But when the one lady with the glasses is like, may your spaghetti sauce never cling to your pasta. And everyone's like, oh, that would be a jinx. It's just something really small but annoying and an inconvenience. Like, ugh. So if you don't necessarily want to cause harm to someone, but you're like, you know what, I hope this person has a shitty day. I hope that they step in a puddle and their socks are wet for the rest of the day. That kind of thing. That would be a jinx. Something that's just kind of an inconvenience that only lasts a day or two, isn't going to really shift, anything major in their life. And honestly, baneful magic isn't for beginners of the craft, which I'll go into that later. But if you want to start doing baneful magic, I would recommend you start with jinxes. Yeah, because they're the simplest and quote unquote easiest and the least harmful. And if you're someone who easily develops a guilty conscience, jinxes are going to be right up your alley. So a hex. What is a hex? A hex is a little bit more extreme. It's something that could potentially cause harm, and that could last a little while. So, for example, if you're hexing an abuser, that can mean lots of things. Maybe it just means that bad luck is going to start coming their way. They're going to get the karma that they deserve. Maybe it means that justice will be served and they'll go to prison for their crimes. That kind of thing really depends on your intent. But a hex is more severe. A hex is intended to actually cause harm and bend the free will of the person that it is being aimed at. It might not be lifelong, but it is intended to last a very long time. Now, a curse is the most severe of them all. There is such a thing as death curses, which I personally do not perform. Never have, never will. There's a lot of witches that like, I'm not performing a death curse. Are you kidding me? Some people will though. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. But curses are very extreme. Things that are very painful, very bothersome, that like the most severe punishment that you can think of, and it can be lifelong or it can affect multiple generations of people. So someone might be experiencing bad luck because their great grandparents were cursed. And that curse has spread and continued over multiple generations. I myself have never performed a curse, but I have performed hexes and jinxes. And then there's other things that, maybe don't necessarily fit into those three categories. Painful protection. which is basically a protection spell. But you're basically establishing that, hey, if any outside forces try to fuck with my protection, they're going to get their shit rocked. That kind of thing. You can really make anything baneful. You can make love spells baneful. Like, I want this person to end up in just a really crappy relationship, so I'm going to make them fall in love with a douchebag. I personally, that's not the kind of thing that I do, and I wouldn't recommend many of you doing that either. I'm just saying that it's a possibility. Really, any form of magic you can turn into a baneful spell. But the three main kinds are jinxes, hexes, and curses. And that is, like I said, they're used interchangeably a lot, those words. And so I just kind of wanted to differentiate between those. Now, what kind of boundaries do I have when I perform baneful magic? And what boundaries would I recommend that you have when performing it? So for one thing, I always make sure that my protections are high so that anything that I'm sending out cannot and will not come back to me. I don't believe in the threefold law, which we'll talk about later, but I do believe in karma. And I do believe that sometimes baneful magic has consequences, which, again, I'll talk about that later. But again, I always make sure that my protections are really high. I also make sure that I do have some morals in performing baneful magic. I do not like to just be hex happy for no reason. I'm not judging people who are. It's just not my preference. I do not want to perform baneful magic on someone without, like, a legitimate reason. I'm not going to hex someone just because they irritate you. Now, maybe a little jinx, something small. Like, yeah, you step in a puddle and your socks are wet. That sucks. Something like that. But hexes and curses spread like wildfire. And so, that being said, I personally, and this is the kind of thing that I would not encourage, but really be like, hey, listen, this is the boundaries that we need to have. I will not, under any circumstances, perform baneful magic on children or pregnant people. That's just, I'm not comfortable with that. And even, like, children are annoying. Like, we all know that. But I would absolutely never, even a jinx, I would never perform baneful magic on a child. I remember someone on TikTok was saying, like, hey, I want to get revenge on this person. Should I put a hex on their kid? And everyone was like, no. What the fuck are you talking about? Why would you hex a child? So that is something to take into consideration. Also, if the person that you're hexing has children. Because hexes, like I said, and curses, baneful magic in general, it spreads like wildfire. So let's say you want to put a hex on someone and that someone has children who had nothing to do with the situation. The bad luck that the person receives may also spread to their children. So what can you do about this? You can do a protection spell for the children so that the hex doesn't spread to them. But that's not always guaranteed to work. So I would instead opt for a justice spell, which is kind of a middle ground between left hand and right hand magic. It's just making sure that justice is served, making sure that that person gets what they deserve without necessarily having it dramatically affect the rest of the people in their family. I've had a couple people reach out to me recently asking me to do spell work for them, which I do perform spell work for clients. It's very informal at the moment. Once I graduate, I'll set up a thing on my website to make it a bit more formal. But right now, people will just kind of email me and we talk about prices and spell work and what exactly they want me to do, blah, blah, blah. And if they want me to do something baneful, the first question that I always ask is, does that person have children who you want to hex, who you want to whatever, That's always my first question. Is this my GoPuff driver? I'm gonna be so mad if my groceries get here while I'm doing this podcast. Anyway, so if you're doing baneful magic, that is something that you want to take into consideration. Are there children involved? Does the person that you're hexing have children? Is there potential for this to spread to their children? And you want to take that into consideration. So, and if someone is pregnant, everyone's going to have different opinions on that, but I personally do not wish to perform baneful magic on someone who is pregnant. But that's just me. And yeah, I only do abusers when it comes to like the serious stuff, right? Like hexes and whatnot. Or just someone who just really fucking deserves it. And I understand that is subjective, and everyone's going to have different opinions on who does or doesn't deserve to have baneful magic performed on them. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say about that. I just got a voice message.
Do tag locks help with that? Because, like you said, the protection spell isn't always guaranteed. So, like maybe a tag lock, like if I have hair or fingernail of that person, would it jump around?
That's a good question. So yeah, if you are performing baneful magic, something that helps is if you have, like the person's name, their birthday, a piece of their hair, some of their fingernails, something like that. That's a really good thing that you can do. But yeah, it helps you connect to that person. So, that could help boost the spell and make sure that it is aimed specifically at that person. But like I said, there is always the possibility of negative energy from that person spreading to others. So you really just want to make sure that you're careful and that you do research and that you know who else is going to be involved is all. But yeah, tadlocks can help. And like I said, performing protections if there's any children involved, or just performing a justice spell if there's children involved, to ensure that no one who is innocent in the situation gets harmed. So what is it that you need to perform baneful magic? So intent isn't everything, but intent is a big part of it. And really, if you're pissed, that's good enough intent. If someone has pissed you off and you want to just fucking, give them what they deserve, just fuel that fire and fuel that energy into your work. Send angry thoughts, send bad vibes to whoever it is sending this to. Now, I said intent isn't everything. I do believe that in magic you need some supplies. I just don't believe that you need all the big fancy stuff that you see on TikTok all the time. Oh, wait, I got a voice message.
I've never heard of a justice spell. Could you please explain it further?
Sure. So, like I said, it's just the idea of bringing justice to the situation. So usually in things like justice or court of law or things like that, they recommend using the candle color orange. Hang on. I want to see something really quick. I'm able to keep talking while I look at other things. Good. Because I want to see. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. So, yes, using orange candles to bring about justice. And, of course, I can't remember ingredients off the top of my head right now, right? But, you can look up ingredients to bring about justice to a situation. So that could be, making sure that that person goes to jail, or that they, have a legal encounter with whatever it is that they're doing. Just making sure that justice is served directly to that person. And like I said, justice spells are not currently baneful. And so because of that, it's less likely to cause harm to innocent people who may be involved in the situation, such as children, a spouse, etc. So going back to what do you need? Yes, you need intent. You need to be able to feel those emotions. If you're not an angry person, or if you just don't really feel a lot of negative emotions a lot of the time, Baneful magic might be difficult for you. You really have to be able to channel those emotions. Now, as I was saying with ingredients, witch talk will have you believing that you need all of these expensive ingredients to do magic correctly. No, not at all. That return to sender spell that I did on TikTok, I got all of those ingredients from Dollar Tree. And within 20 minutes of performing that spell, I was $200 richer. So you really don't need anything too super crazy in order to perform this kind of magic. Really, you just want things that are sharp and spicy and sour and things like that. So, sharp things like nails, pins, broken glass. And I always say that when you're performing your spell work, I like to recommend that you talk to your ingredients, quote unquote, even if it's just in your head and you're not saying it out loud. But you want to, for lack of better words, tell your ingredients what specifically they're doing. So, sharp objects would be used if you're meaning to inflict pain on a person. So, like, for example, let's say, I want to place a trigger warning for sexual abuse here, but let's say you are wanting to put a hex or a curse on a rapist, okay? So maybe you would get a cucumber or a pepper or something else phallic shaped, and you would put pins and needles in it to represent pain elsewhere, if you know what I mean. That's the kind of thing that you would use sharp objects for. And then, like I said, things that are sour, things that are bitter. So I'm sure you guys have seen people doing the lemon hex on TikTok. That's a thing that you can do. Put them in a lemon so that it's sour, it stings, it burns. Spicy ingredients like cayenne pepper, hot sauce, things like that. And again, you want to use that intent. I want their life to be sour. I want them to burn. I want them to feel pain, whatever the cause might be. Sorry, I got sidetracked. And then in general, just things that are gross, like dead bugs, mold, things like that are things that you can use in baneful magic, and you can get creative. It doesn't necessarily have to be specific to those things. And there's all kinds of things that you can do for baneful magic. You can write someone's name on a piece of paper and burn it, or you can put the piece of paper in a lemon and tie up the lemon and drip wax on it and put pins in it. Or you can put it in a cow tongue to make them shut up. Or, there's all kinds of things that you can do. And, I saw a TikTok video with a bunch of book recommendations on left hand magic, and I should have maybe screenshotted them because I didn't. All right, let's see what else we got. This question.
How can you tell if someone's using baneful magic on you? Like, for example, I found a dead possum in my trash. Is that an example of someone using baneful magic? My engine blew a rod. Life has just been crappy lately. Are those good indications? And how do I go about cleansing those from my life?
Toothpicks or, two small stick-like objects that will float in water, if that makes sense, okay? And then you're going to plop them in the water and you're going to let them float around for a little bit, maybe like 5-10 minutes, not too long. And then you're just going to kind of observe them, right? Now, if at no point, if the sticks, I'm just going to call them sticks, but, there's lots of things that you can use, right? If the sticks don't touch, then no one has performed any kind of baneful magic on you. If they touch, like they make a T or something like that, it means that someone has tried to send baneful magic toward you, but they weren't successful. If they cross, they make an X, then that means that someone has sent something your way. So then what you want to do, well, there's a couple of things that you can do. You can do a basic cleansing, just saying, hey, bad vibes, get out of my house, and update your wards, protect yourself, and things like that. And you don't have to do anything in return to the person who sent it to you if you don't want to. If you do want to, which is what I did, then we have what's called a return to sender, which basically means whoever sent those bad vibes to you is going to get it back to them. So that's what I did. I can't remember exactly what I used, but I had like a red candle that I wrote a bunch of sigils and fuck you on it, and got a bunch of spicy ingredients. And like I said, all of those things came from Dollar Tree. I had like hot sauce and cayenne pepper and stuff, and just kind of had my intents and put the ingredients together and lit my candle, and had the intent that this bad energy that has been sent to me is going to be sent away from me and back from whence it came. And within 20 minutes, I had gained $200. So it works. It really does work. So, like I said, I hope I explained that clearly. But if you're a visual learner, go check out my Return to Sender playlist on TikTok, because I walk you through the whole thing. So, I talked about earlier consequences of performing baneful magic, which is what I want to get into next. Are there consequences? Can you just put a hex on anyone whenever you want? And, what kind of repercussions might there be? So, I don't necessarily subscribe to the threefold law. That is a Wiccan practice. If you don't know what the threefold law is, it is a law in the Wicca practices that basically say anything that you put out into the world will come back to you times 3. So if you put out good energy, then good energy will come back to you times 3. If you put out bad energy, then bad energy will come back to you times 3. And a lot of people are scared to do baneful magic because they think, oh no, if I do this, then 3 times worse is going to come back to me. That's not, if you're not Wiccan, you don't have to subscribe to that. However, I do believe, kind of, that what goes around comes around. I do believe in karma, and I do believe that there are at times consequences for your actions, which is why I still think that you should be careful in doing your baneful magic, because the universe knows, right? If someone is being a dickhead and you're just trying to give them what they deserve, that's one thing. But like I said, let's say you perform a hex on someone who has children, and that hex spreads to their children who were innocent and had nothing to do with the situation. The universe is going to look at you and be like, bitch. And some of that bad energy may cycle back to you because innocent people were harmed. Does that make sense? So not only is it about having a moral compass because, don't hurt children, but also because there's the potential for that negative energy to cycle its way back to you, which is why it's important to be careful when performing this magic. I just got a voice message, so let's see. Oh, come on.
This is totally irrelevant, but I just want you to know that I've spent the past 30 minutes, literally 30 minutes, stupid app to connect so I could hear you talk. That's all I wanted to say. I love you.
I love you too. Thank you. I'm so sorry the app was giving you such a hard time. Oh no. Thank you for putting in all of that work to be able to listen to me anyway. I appreciate it. But yeah, as I said, baneful magic spreads like wildfire. So always, I guess for lack of better words, do research on who you're sending this negative energy to. And just, like I said, make sure that it's not spreading to people that it shouldn't be spreading to, because 1, you want to have morals, and 2, because if innocent people are harmed, that bad energy might make its way back to you. Another thing that you might want to take into consideration is that the person that you're doing baneful magic on may also be a magical or spiritual practitioner. They may be experienced in this kind of thing. Therefore, if they sense, oh, someone has sent negative energy to me, I'm going to do a return to sender. And then all of those bad vibes are going to get sent back to you. So I guess really that's what I want you guys to take away from this, is that if you want to perform baneful magic on someone, just do your research on who the person is that you want to perform this baneful magic on. Now, I also want to give another disclaimer. I'm saying I like to believe in the practical before the magical, which means, taking, I don't want to say real because magic is real, but taking practical steps before turning to magic. So for example, let's say you have a friend who is being abused by their spouse. Oh, okay, hang on. We'll come back to that. I just got a voice message.
So I was wondering if you have heard of or have an experience with a witch's jar. I've seen those going around from practitioners that use baneful magic as a way to protect yourself. I just have never done one myself and was curious.
I have heard of witches' jars. I have not personally made one myself for a couple reasons. One being, I live in an apartment, and I've heard that a lot of people like to bury their witches' jars, and I have nowhere to bury mine. So that's one thing. Also, I guess you don't necessarily have to bury it. You could have it displayed on your altar or elsewhere. Another reason, and this is just my personal isms. This has nothing to do with any of the other practitioners. It is very common with witches' jars. So if you don't know what a witch's jar is, it's basically making a protection jar for yourself, but really attaching yourself to it. And one such way to attach oneself to this jar is by putting bodily fluids of yourself into said jar. And I'm squeamish, so I just don't want to do that. But that is just my personal take on that. Let's see what this voice message says.
So, as a banful Christian practitioner, I would just like to add, if you would like to do any sort of banful working on someone, make sure that you converse with your counsel first and get the okay from the universe. And also, I know I'm not the one answering questions, but to answer your question, banful protection is, in my opinion, obviously because I'm a banful practitioner, some of the best protections, because why would you, send that shit back,
Yeah.
You got to protect yourself and let people know that that's not okay.
Absolutely. And yeah, for those of you who don't know, I am a Christian witch, and yes, I perform baneful magic, but you know what? Jesus cursed a fig bush, so it's fine. Yeah, but that's another thing. So regardless whether you're a Christian witch, pagan witch, if you have any kind of spiritual counsel on your side, I would absolutely recommend consulting with them beforehand, being like, hey guys, is this cool? Should I do this? Do some divination beforehand. Whenever I perform baneful magic for clients, I always do like a tarot reading or a bone throw or something like that, just to kind of get a vibe of like, hey, is this the right thing to do? Always check in, especially if you get to a point where you're doing things for clients, because your client unfortunately might not be telling you the whole story. They could be lying to you and saying, hey, this person's a terrible person, when really they're not, but they're just saying that so that you will put a hex on them. Does that make sense? So that is a very good point. Always check in with your spiritual team before performing that kind of magic on someone. So back to what I was saying about the practical before the magical. So my example was, let's say you have a friend who is in an abusive relationship. Take practical steps before the magical steps. So for example, if you feel comfortable potentially getting the police involved, getting social workers involved, coming up with a plan with your friend to get them out of the house and find them a safe place to stay. Doing those kinds of things first. And then if the problem is still not resolved, or if you just want to add a little extra pizzazz, then after those practical steps have been taken, that is when baneful magic can be performed. Or, if it's a situation where the person who needs help is just not safe in their environment, then as a last resort, it can be, hey, let's put a hex on this guy and get our friend out. Use your best judgment. But I always like to say practical before the magical. So, and for that reason, that's why I like to say that this is not for beginners. Because a lot of beginner practitioners, there's still a lot of research that needs to be done. You need to be decent at talking with your divine counsel. You need to have a decent understanding of what tools and herbs to use, how to protect yourself, how to block those negative energies that you're sending out from coming back to you, and a multitude of other things. So that's why I like to advise that baneful magic is not for beginners. So I'm going to open this up for questions now. My GoPuff order still hasn't gotten here. Oh my goodness. Sorry. We're going to open up for questions, and in the meantime, while questions are coming in, I'm going to talk a little bit more and just kind of ramble, and we'll see if we get some questions. So as I said, this is an exclusive for my podcast listeners. I'll be bringing goblin scoops back to my shop very soon, as well as some crystals, which is something very exciting. Make sure that you're following me on Patreon if you're not already, because patrons get to vote on future podcast topics. And I put up a poll yesterday. Ooh, I got my message. Let's see.
It's not related to baneful magic at all, but you did a bone throw for me a while back, and you said it showed Osiris, and I don't really know anything about Osiris. I don't know how to learn about Osiris. I don't even know what kind of things I can do with Osiris. Is there any way you could touch on that?
Oh, sorry guys, I have a little bit of frog in my throat. I don't have COVID, I promise. Not that it matters, you guys aren't here. But anyway, Osiris, I believe, is the consort of Isis, who is an Egyptian goddess, and Osiris was also an Egyptian. So that's maybe what I would look into. I would look into the Egyptian mythology, the Egyptian stories behind Isis and Osiris, kind of get into what their story is and see if there's any sort of associations that you can find of him from there. I would have to imagine that there's lots of stories to tell because of that. But yeah, I know that he is very closely connected with Isis, so maybe doing some research on her can help with that as well.
As a Christian, which version of the Bible do you recommend? I know from your TikToks that you're not a big fan of the King James version, so just wondering.
Oh my God. So this is going to be very subjective, but I know how to help you. So, if you go to Google and type in different versions of the Bible chart, and then go to images, there's like charts and diagrams to help you decide what version of the Bible is best for you. Spoiler alert, none of them are going to be perfect. None of them are going to be exactly accurate. They're all going to have their own flaws in their own ways. And almost every modern Bible is still influenced by the KJV. so we can never really fully get away from it. I read the NIV just because that's what's easiest for me to understand, but there's a multitude of versions of the Bible out there. So what I would recommend for each individual person based on their individual needs is, looking up different versions of the Bible, diagrams, and using those diagrams to kind of help you gauge, okay, this is the kind of content that I'm looking for, because there's versions of the Bible that are more fact-based and that are more storytelling-based and that are more this and more that, because there's a million different versions. So doing that kind of research should be able to help you figure out what version is best suited for you.
I do have a question about baneful magic and being a Christian witch. Do you have any more suggestions about just like trying to review the scripture that refers to Yeshua, or any other resources that I could look into or we could look into? Thank you.
Yeah, so I know there's the verse where Jesus curses the fig bush. I don't remember what specific verse it is, but I promise you can Google it. It's a really famous verse. And, there's lots of other areas in the Bible where Jesus gets frustrated. There is some controversy over, the part in the Bible where he goes into the temple and throws the tables. I'm not really going to get into that because of that controversy. But the point is, we see Jesus getting frustrated, getting angry. So I don't know. I think it's justified. I think that we don't see a lot of abusers in the Bible getting their shit rocked, unfortunately. But my Jesus does not believe that rapists should be able to walk free. So do with that what you will.
Oh, also, out of curiosity, what are the coyote bones from? Like, which close practice is that from? Is that an indigenous practice?
Yes, so I just recently learned that coyote bones are close to indigenous practices. So I ordered fox bones to replace my coyote bones that I have now, because when I bought them, I didn't know that they were closed. So it's going to be a few days until my fox bones arrive. So I'm going to continue doing my bone throws with my coyote bones as usual for the next couple days until my fox bones arrive. But I do still want my coyote spirit to go to a good home. So I have been in touch with an indigenous person who is going to take them once I get my fox bones and am finished working with them. So I'll make sure that my coyote spirit goes to a good indigenous home that will be able to connect with him properly. And then I will have fox bones, which are open.
I completely agree with everything you said about the Bible part, especially like they're all different, so you can't just choose one. But I personally prefer the Alpha and Omega for like, as like my starter basis of research for things. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't know. That might help somebody.
Yeah, that definitely might help somebody. Thank you.
Are there any books you recommend for baneful magic?
Oh, I have so many books. Let's see. Even if you don't exclusively work with daemons, which I will talk about in a moment, any sort of books about demons and demonology will have decent recommendations for baneful magic. Let's see. I'm gonna go out to my living room and look through my books and see if I have any that I recommend. Ooh, okay. So in terms of kind of like, there's no such thing as beginner baneful magic, but for lack of better words, right? Quote unquote, beginner baneful magic. Protection Magic, Spells for Defense by Cassandra Eason is a really good book for It's mainly protection based, but it gets really specific. Like, it's not just here's a general protection spell. It's here's how to protect a foster child from an abusive foster home. Like, it gets hella specific. So that's a book that I would recommend. I favorited a video on TikTok with like recommendation books. So I will duet that video and you guys can take screenshots. So make sure that you're following me on TikTok. And like I said, I will duet the video that I found with all the book recommendations. I should have written them down and I didn't because I'm stupid.
I did kind of want to ask about the consulting your deities kind of a thing. I've had some things that have just confused me where my deities have been real with me and honest with me, and I've appreciated that. And then when I get some clarity, they suddenly like have a change of path or change of mind, and I am just confused on how to go about that, I guess.
Yeah, so deities do change their minds. And that can be frustrating if you kind of were raised in the Christian mindset of like, oh, God doesn't change his mind. They all change their minds. But, you know, as your path changes, so do the things that you're meant to do. So, you know, it makes perfect sense if at one point the gods say, oh yeah, do this thing, and then, you know, some things in your life change or go differently than they normally would, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait, no, don't do that because this thing has changed. And sometimes things in your life or in the universe have changed and you might not even know it. So yes, the gods change their minds, but it's all circumstantial. So just know that if they have changed their minds on something, it's for good reason.
I know it's going to sound funny and silly, but does your coyote spirit have a name?
So I had named him Azareth, but as I said, now that I have learned that coyotes are close to indigenous people, I will be rehoming him to an indigenous family. And, you know, I tried really hard to connect with my coyote spirit, and we did bond, but we didn't bond very well, like not nearly as well as some of my other spirit guides. And now I know why. He will probably bond much better with the indigenous family that I am sending him to.
Sorry, question about the Alpha and Omega. Who is that by? Because I just looked up the name, the Alpha and Omega, and I have like 4 different authors. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's a version of the Bible. I would honestly, you know, maybe just do as much research with as many sources as possible. That might just be me, though. I love books. So if I see something with like 4 different books, I'm like, I'm going to read all 4 books. I would maybe even look into seeing if that's a version of the Bible. Maybe that's what they were referencing.
Could you maybe repeat the name of the book? Because I wanted to write it down.
Yes, it is Protection Magic, Spells for Defense by Cassandra Eason, Eason. Protection Magic, Spells for Defense by Cassandra Eason. Here, let me just flip to a random page in this book so you can see like how specific this gets. Like, to avoid taking any sadness from your old home or picking up bad energies from a new one. Like, that is so specific. Let's see. What else is there? What else do we got? A triple moon protective ward if you suffer from nightmares and night terrors. To protect yourself from undue aggression and clicks when working in markets and fairs. Like, it gets so specific. So, not every spell in this book is baneful, but they can be kind of like sassy, if that makes sense. So it's a good place it's a good place for beginners. So yeah, Protection Magic, Spells for Defense by Cassandra Eason. Please keep submitting questions if you have any. I am here to talk all night with you guys if you want. But in the meantime, I don't have any more for the moment, so I'm going to keep talking and see if we get any more. And if I don't, that's fine too. So as I said, if you subscribe to my Patreon, you can vote on future podcast topics. Tonight's topic was voted on by patrons. Oh, we got a message.
Do you have any recommendations for autistic witches?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one. So I do not have autism. I do know Sparrow Sprocket, right? That's their username. Is a witch who has autism. So I would recommend finding other witches who have autism and asking from them. I do know that you really just need to take yourself into account. So, for example, this is a really specific example, but maybe it'll apply to someone. There's lots, if candlelight bothers you because of certain, light frequencies, or if sound cleansing bothers you because of sound, take your needs into account. Your path is meant to be your own. And so just because, some other witch does something does not mean that you have to do it. So that's again, I don't have autism, so I feel like I can't really speak on this too much, but that's what I would say. Don't be afraid to make your path your own, because that's what you're supposed to do. What works for some people might not work for you, and vice versa, and that's okay. So just make sure that you're taking care of yourself and taking your own needs into account.
I second that question. I have Asperger's, and sometimes I feel disconnected from my practice and from my deities, and I find it hard to reconnect.
Yeah, so as I said, finding other witches with autism can help. My autism does run in my family, so I do know a lot of people who have autism. My older sister has autism, and she specifically struggles with a lot of sensory issues. So that's the biggest thing that I would say, is take your needs into account first and foremost. If you see a practitioner doing something and you're just like, I know that wouldn't work for me, that's okay. Don't feel obligated to do things that you see other witches doing if they don't suit you. And there's also, there's other ways to connect. If you have a hard time, doing the whole I'm going to sit still and meditate and be quiet and shut my brain off for 3 hours. Even neurotypical people can't do that sometimes. So, there's things like active meditation, like doing yoga or going for a walk or things like that. Connecting with nature as a way of connecting with your deities. Those are always options for you. But as I said, Sparrow is a big creator on TikTok who has autism and is a witch and talks about that a lot. Maybe I'll post a video being like, hey, if you have autism and you're a witch, let us know in the comments so that my other followers can follow you. I don't know. Maybe I'll do something like that so that I can help you guys out.
Sorry, I'm at work. I couldn't answer the question at the time. But the one that I use the most is from I Saw the Light Ministries.
Okay, so that was the Alpha and Omega question, the I Saw the Light Ministries.
So I'm actually an autistic witch, and I'm also physically disabled. And yeah, even from the perspective of a neurotypical witch, or if you have ADHD, I don't know, not autistic witch, that's good advice. It's definitely your own practice. And if you understand and feel things differently, that's totally okay. That is your practice. And with the physically disabled, I'm fatigued a lot. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to not be this glorious TikTok witch doing things constantly.
That's another excellent point. So I also have chronic fatigue. I have chronic migraine syndrome and endometriosis. So I am tired and in pain a lot. So, go at your own pace. If you're, not feeling good, don't do a spell if you're not feeling good. Take yourself and your needs as the top priority. And yeah, like that person said, don't feel the need to be the top tier witch talk who has all of the cool fancy things, because we're all doing that for the camera anyway.
So I'm a direct support professional for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I've found just through looking up hashtags on TikTok or on Facebook, neurodivergent witches is a huge one. There are so many people that are using those hashtags to post their content. I highly recommend using those tools to find other people who have thought processes like yourself.
I love that. So, yes, hashtag neurodivergent witches. There's all kinds of things out there. I would love to get to a point in this podcast where I have other creators, co-hosting with me or as like guest stars and stuff. So I would love to do a podcast episode one day with, one of the other big witchy creators that maybe has autism and, ask them about their experience to help you guys with it as well. But in the meantime, yeah, hashtag neurodivergent witch on TikTok, and that'll help you find some other creators.
That would be awesome. I will keep an eye out for that.
I feel like that was referencing something else because that question came in before I said that. But yeah, hashtag neurodivergent witch. And that will definitely be able to help those of you who are neurodivergent find other people who are going through similar things that you may be going through and can help you form your practice to your needs. Okay, so again, feel free to send in the questions, but I'm going to go back to talk about my Patreon because I'm out of questions for right now. If you subscribe to my Patreon, you can vote on future podcast topics. This week's topic, the left-hand path, was chosen by my patrons, and yesterday I put up a poll, and the topic for next week that my patron chose is going to be working with demons. I am very excited to talk about this topic. I have worked with Lilith for quite some time, who is sometimes viewed as a demon and other times viewed as a goddess. And I also am working with Beelzebub for certain things. And once I move and have more space, I will also be taking in Asmodeus, Azazel, and Baphomet. Let's see what we got for questions.
I also just want to thank you because I'm kind of treating this podcast kind of like my new church type community because I don't really fit in with any of my own churches. And what I mean by that is that we're all learning together, and you, the person leading it, doesn't claim to know everything, and we're all able to ask questions and support each other. And I just want to say I really appreciate that, and I just really appreciate the community. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That just made my whole night. Yeah, I don't ever want to claim to have all the answers because that's what cult leaders do. I just kind of reached a point where I was like, you know what? I have a platform, and it seems like this platform is helping people. So thank you so much for that. I'm really glad that I'm able to help you guys by doing this and with the other content that I create.
What was the topic? The phone decided to switch it to a different talk.
You are totally fine. Next week, my topic will be working with demons. And I'll get into that a bit more in a second, but I do have 2 more voice messages.
I want to thank you for giving us this kind of opportunity for free. Yes, just thank you.
Of course. I do have a lot of paid content that, I do with my shop and with Patreon and stuff, but I also want to make sure that you guys have access to free stuff as well. But if you tell your friends how much you love this podcast and we can get me to 10,000 followers on here, then I can get verified and start getting monetized. And I have 267,000 followers on TikTok, so you would think that getting to 10,000 on here wouldn't be that big of an issue. I have been kind of blowing up on here lately, though. I got like another 100 followers like overnight. So thank you guys for that. Tell your friends that you really like the TeaTime Podcast.
So, since she said that about a church, did you know that you can claim this podcast as a church, and you can like claim that on your taxes, like your home on your taxes?
All of this shit with TurboTax and trying to figure it out, and my parents kicked me out of the house, so they can't help me with my taxes this year, so I'm by myself for the first time, and I'm very frustrated. So yeah, I don't know if it goes terribly this year. Maybe I will claim this podcast as a church and be tax exempt next year. So thank you for that tip.
I'm kind of nervous to get into the whole books thing because I know, kind of similar to TikTok, a lot of the stuff isn't true or honest. So I guess how do you verify the authenticity of what they wrote?
That is a great question. So yeah, just because something is written down in a book does not make it fact, right? So there's a couple things that you can do with that. One, reading multiple books. Let's say you read 5 books and one book says one thing and then 4 other books say the exact opposite. It's, by process of elimination, that one book is probably the one that's wrong. So cross-referencing and looking at multiple sources is one thing. But it also goes back to forming your craft to your own ways. If you read something in a book that you don't like or that you don't want to do, you don't have to do it. So those are my 2 main things. Cross-reference, double check, look at multiple sources. And also, don't be afraid to be opinionated. If you just look at something in a book and you're like, nope, don't like that, then don't do it. And you don't have to.
Girl, you're all right. I owe so much to the government, and I'm pretty sure everyone else does.
Yeah, I have a spreadsheet, and if we've done it correctly, I'm going to IRS about $5,000. So that's great.
Definitely cross-reference, like definitely, even if it's in a book or Google. Like, if it's in a book, Google it. If it's on Google, look for it in a book and cross-reference.
Oh.
Also, if a book has resources listed, that's a very good sign. Not every good book has it, but it's a good sign.
Yeah, so that's another thing. If the book that you're reading has a bibliography or they reference, other sources, even just every now and then, it shows that the author has done their research, and is then also, that kind of gives them a little bit of credibility into writing their own book. You also want to do some research on the author, like how long, is the author a witch if they're writing about witchcraft? How long have they been saying? Have they written any other books? Things like that can definitely help when it comes to books. So as I said, for next week's podcast, my patrons selected the topic working with demons. Now, this is an interesting topic as it is, but I'm sure it is especially interesting for those of you who follow me because I am a Christian witch. And you're probably thinking to yourselves, bruh, how, why? Why are you working with demons when you are also working with Jesus? I'm also working with angels and pagan deities, so I don't ever get any sleep. No, so that's what next week's topic is going to be about. How do I do what I do? Why is it okay? And if someone wants to start working with demons themselves, first of all, how can you get over some of the fears that may have been ingrained into you thanks to Christianity? how you can start working with them, what resources I recommend, and things of that nature. It's going to be a very fun show next week. I'm going to keep talking for just a couple more minutes. So send in your questions if you have any. I think this is my longest show to date. Thanks, you guys. I don't know about you guys, but I like it when a podcast is nice and long. Like, there's nothing wrong with like a 15-minute podcast, but I like mine to be at least a half hour. But if they get to be like over an hour long, it just makes me like super happy. Let's see.
Thank you so much for creating the content that you make. It's really been a huge eye-opener, and it's kind of helped me heal a little bit with the resentment I have towards the Christian church after growing up with it, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes. Whenever people say that I've helped them, I get like this imposter syndrome of like, what? Oh my God. So just thank you guys.
Sorry to ask so many questions, and I apologize for the echo. I've been trying to look up resources on like star seeds, light workers, twin flames, soulmates, all that, but I don't often find many resources for that. Do you happen to have any?
Starseeds is complicated because that community can be really ableist at times. You got to be careful with that. However, I do believe in the idea that it is possible to have had past lives on other planets, and I do believe in the possibility of working with extraterrestrial beings. You can look up like hashtag Starseed, hashtag Pleiadians on TikTok, but because they are very ableist towards the neurodivergent community a lot of times, so you just have to be careful. If you're able to afford it, and this goes for everyone, there is a subscription service that's kind of like Netflix for spirituality called Gaia, Gaia. And again, it's not perfect. I don't agree with everything that is said on every show on that platform, but I'd say a good 80% of the time I find it to be very informative and interesting. If you can't afford the subscription service, they have a YouTube channel as well where you can look at some of that stuff for free. And I do believe that they talk about a lot of the topics that you mentioned. Like I said, it's not perfect. Take everything with a grain of salt, but it's a good starting point.
So I know that you said that we are going to get to King James. I was also hoping maybe in that episode, or even as a separate episode, could we go over authors that are, I guess, blacklisted, ones that we know have spread misconceptions and are not practitioners of the craft? I'd be really interested in that.
Ooh, y'all are giving me ideas. I'm gonna write that down. Yeah, I feel King James needs his own episode, and that is something that we will get to eventually. But yeah, I would like to talk about other things, like even long time ago, like the Malleus Maleficarum. That was a book all about how to catch and persecute witches. But I'm sure there's probably so many others. I'm sure there were lots of things written during the witch trials that could be discussed. So yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
This is going to be interesting next episode. I'm looking forward to it because one of the questions I asked a while back for a bone reading was if Leviathan wanted to work with me, and the answer was yes. So I'm looking forward to learning more since, like you said, due to my religious beliefs, I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, so, I've been kind of like scared to jump into it, to work with him with shadow work. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I love Leviathan. I've not worked with him, but I have encountered him. He is very protective. He's very kind. You will enjoy him thoroughly. However, in terms of religious trauma, and specifically for the fact that you were raised Jehovah's Witness, I recommend the author Valerie Love. She is a Christian witch who was raised Jehovah's Witness. And she just kind of tells her story. And it's very helpful for people who have religious trauma in general. But like I said, more specifically for people who are raised Jehovah's Witness and have walked away from it and are maybe wanting to pursue the craft. She is an amazing author. She has a YouTube channel too. She is the founder of the Christian Witches website. She's amazing. So I would recommend looking to her and seeing if some of her content and her books can maybe provide you some peace.
Also, I want to say, as an eclectic witch, you've really helped me open my eyes, because I did start out as a Christian and was baptized and had a relationship with Jesus and felt so alienated by that I abandoned it. And I'm inspired by you to bring that back into my craft and see if I can work with that now where I'm at.
I'm gonna cry, you guys. I was baptized too when I was 15, and yeah, I kind of talk about, kind of the things that alienated me in my episode about purity culture, which you guys can still listen to on here or on my Patreon. I was very much in the same boat. I felt alienated. I wanted to leave the church, but I didn't want to leave Jesus. So when I found out that the Christian witches existed, I was like, boom, that's my path. And I'm so happy that I've been able to help you guys. And thank you all so much for all of your kind words about that.
I absolutely love your future family videos with the kid. It tickles me every time and it makes me laugh. Please do more of those.
That will be a series that is on my page forever, until the day that I actually have children. And honestly, because I have a lot of issues with my mom, having like the kind of fantasies about how I will raise my future children kind of helps me cope with that trauma. And that, okay, I did not get A, B, C, D, or E from my mother. So when I become a mother, I will give those things to my children. So yes, it's funny and I love doing them. I make myself laugh when I do them and when I watch them. It is by far my most popular and fun and beloved series on my page. So I will continue to do it forever. But it has also helped me cope with a lot of trauma in a lot of ways. And, I've been with my boyfriend for 4.5 years now, and we don't want children anytime soon, but we do one day, and it's just fun to fantasize about those things. So yes, I will absolutely keep that series on my page forever.
Thank you for everything you do, Hannah. You really helped me deconstruct. I grew up Mormon, and it's really been hard becoming faith and deconstructing, and your personal gnosis stories have really helped me lately, so thanks again for that. And I've really been loving your podcast.
Oh my god, you guys! So yeah, a couple weeks ago, a lot of people were asking me like, okay, I know you're a Christian witch, I like Jesus, but I don't really like his dad. What do you think about that? So I made a playlist on my TikTok, which you guys can find. It's called The Christian God, where I explain my personal views on him. And really that could be a whole other podcast about just my unverified personal gnosis, my personal experiences with the Christian God. But the biggest thing that I've heard is that it has helped you guys and that it has helped people. And I didn't expect it to blow up in the way that it did. And I was kind of scared to share that message. I was scared that people wouldn't like it or that it would make people angry. And, there were some people in the comments who were haters, but, whatever, fuck them. But yeah, overall, I'm really glad that it has been able to help you guys.
I believe I was baptized about maybe 5 times and it never really stuck. I was raised Baptist and it never felt right. I'm now a pagan eclectic witch and I follow Loki, Hades, Hecate, Persephone. I'm trying to get with Hermes. Who else? Bastet. I'm trying to get with Freya, but I don't know if those two will conflict. And I apologize if I forgot anybody. But yeah.
That's amazing. So yeah, I kind of identify as Christo-pagan, which is intermingling Christianity and paganism. So yes, I work with Jesus and the Christian father God, quote unquote, and I have my guardian angel. But I also have Lilith and Loki and Ares. I worked with the Morrigan for a short time, but she's not here anymore. I have Lord Beelzebub, and as I said, I will soon be bringing in Asmodeus, Azazel, and Baphomet. The deal was, if they help me find a big enough apartment, I'll give them their own altar space. So the ball's in their court now. I'm thinking they may have found me one. But, if we end up getting it, that will be what determines whether or not I actually bring them in. So, yeah.
Hearing that about the future family things, I'm in my head, it's always like this phrase, like, you've been using this as a whale, like, as a whale, of course, as a veil, and I just can't with it.
But can you wash my veil? You've been using this as a veil. That's another thing. People always ask me, Hannah, how do you do your witchy kid voice? And I don't have an answer to that. I'm just able to do it. Like, here, I'll do it right now. Hey, Mom, can you wash my veil? I don't have an answer to how I'm able to do it. I'm just able to do it. Maybe it's an age regression thing that I should talk to my therapist about. I don't know, but I'm glad that you guys enjoy it. And my future witchy kid is glad that you like it too.
Your UPG videos have definitely been so important, and I really, really, really applaud stepping into those topics, because these videos bring an ease to past, Christians like me. And I always viewed God as a loving and peaceful God, not the way the Bible portrays him at times in religion. So thank you for that. I really appreciate you.
Oh, I don't even know what to say. Other than just, thank you. And I'm glad that I've been able to help. I want to write a book someday about just my story and my experiences, because I think that I have so much to say. And one of the things that I want to include in that is how I view Jesus and how I view the Christian God. And I don't know. I hope that I can spread that message to even more people one day, but I'm glad that I have been able to spread it to as many people as I have as it is.
Here's an idea for a future family episode where maybe the kid is trying to put a hex on their mean teacher, and then you're like, no, we don't do that.
I like that. Yeah, I've done it a couple times where the kid will ask for hot sauce and the mom's like, I see you. Yeah, I need to make more videos of her trying to put hexes on people, because just the image of a 5-year-old trying to put a hex on someone is just so funny to me. I definitely think that once I graduate and move and I'm in a new apartment and have more space, I'll be able to get more creative with those videos, because right now I live with a roommate and I'm kind of just trying to do these things in my bedroom. And like she knows that I do TikTok and that I'm a witch and do all these videos and stuff, but it is still a little bit weird when you're talking in your 5-year-old voice and your roommate walks into the room. It's just a little bit awkward. So that's why I don't do them very often. And also just because it is hard to come up with ideas, because I do try to make those span like the entire 3 minutes, and it's harder to come up with ideas than you would think. But as I said, that will be a series on my channel forever because it's just so funny. And I talk about a lot of heavy topics on my page too on TikTok. So it's just nice to get some comic relief every now and then too.
So I know that you keep mentioning your Patreon, and I'm definitely going to be looking into pledging so that I can participate on your page. But I also want to shamelessly plug your shop and all the amazing things you make, like your candles and your black salt. I love every single thing that I've gotten from you. So y'all should check that out.
You're the ingredient to make black salt, so thank you for that too. I'll write that in my hand. But thank you. So okay, 2 things to touch on there. Patreon. I only have 3 tiers right now because that's all that I can manage right now while I'm still in school. But once I graduate, I will be adding more. So thank you. And also with my shop, thank you. I just did a candle launch and I sold out, and I'm working on bringing the goblin scoops back. And like I said, you just reminded me that I need to get my things for black salt. I just wrote that on my hand. So I'll be bringing that back soon too, because I know that that is super popular. I sell out of black salt like every time I launch it, which is why it's so hard to come by on my shop and why it hasn't been on my shop for a while. But thank you.
What would you recommend for cohabitating with a romantic partner who doesn't necessarily understand your craft, and you don't want to scare them either?
That's the story of my life. Well, for one thing, it probably depends on how long you've been together. Like I said, I've been with my boyfriend for almost 5 years, and he's just used to all my bullshit by now. So that's one thing. I would just, you just kind of have to be honest with them and communicate with them, but also allow them to do the same. Be honest and like, hey, this is my practice. This is what I believe in. This is the things that I like, and, that kind of thing. But you also have to allow your partner to express things that make them uncomfortable, or allow them to ask questions as well. When my boyfriend and I move in together, we're going to try to get into a 2-bedroom where I will have my own office and most of my spooky things will be in there. But there will definitely still be some pentagrams and crystals around the rest of the apartment as well. And my boyfriend just doesn't really mind. I think it might have been so, my boyfriend was with me when I got kicked out of the house, and has kind of just been with me on this entire witchcraft journey that I've been on. And I think that he would want me to feel at home either way, right? But because of everything that I personally have been through, when we get our place together, he really wants me to just feel at home and safe and things like that. So that's why, for us specifically, that's why he's like, you can put anything you want in the apartment. I love you. I just want you to be happy. So, but that's what I would say, communicate with your partner, but also give them the space to communicate with you. If they have questions, or if they're like, is a pentagram evil? Have a nice adult, mature conversation with them on why it's not. Maybe even point out that it used to be a Christian symbol, just things like that. Allowing your partner to come to you with concerns, as well as you going to them with any concerns that you might have. I hope it makes sense. One day, I really want my boyfriend to do a podcast with me and talk about just our life together. I don't know if he will. He's camera shy. He's microphone shy. He doesn't want people on TikTok to see his face or hear his voice. Maybe I will convince him to one day. He does follow me on here though, and he is the one person that I am following. So you can see who I'm following. See Kenny Thurman. I think his username is Dr. Poop, actually, because he's very mature. So maybe if you guys spam him with enough follows, we'll get him to do a podcast with me sometime.
My boyfriend is a very talented practitioner. He could read your soul with just one tarot card. And he's always advising me to be careful. He doesn't practice anymore, but I still do. And he's always giving me advice, but telling me to be cautious.
Yeah, and that's okay too, because it is true that we should be cautious and careful with the craft, and it's something that we should take seriously. But I think that is a healthy relationship, and that you both have space to express yourselves in whatever way that you need to. Okay, this is definitely my longest show to date, and I'm really happy about that. Thank you to all of you who have stuck around this long. If you still have questions, keep them coming. That's fine. If not, like I said, next week we're going to be talking about working with demons. And that's going to be a very fun and interesting show, I think, especially from the perspective of a Christian witch. Make sure that you tell your friends about the TeaTime Podcast and how much you love it. Because like I said, I have almost 300,000 followers on TikTok. If I can get to just 10,000 on stereo, I can get monetized. Not that money is everything. I'll do this for free for forever, but it'd still be cool. Check out my Patreon. Check out my shop, as that one person so graciously said. Thank you again. If you just stumbled across this stereo talk and you have no idea who I am, hi, my name's Hannah. I'm a witch. I go by Spirituality on TikTok, spelled T-E-A. It's a pun. It's fantastic. You should follow me on there if you're not already. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, and all of that stuff you can find in my Linktree and my TikTok bio. What else do we got?
I'm 99% sure my partner has a gift of being able to see spirits. So my main worry is practicing and accidentally inviting something and he gets scared shitless because he doesn't really understand that.
Oh, dang it, my phone. Allowing that space for communication. Just saying hey, this is what I practice and this is what I do. If anything scares you or if you see anything, tell me. And just making sure that he knows that you have protections up. Maybe have him in the room and have him watch you make a protection jar or something so that he sees what you're doing. Not saying that he has to be in the room with you all the time when you practice, but just for little things like that, if that makes sense. And just making sure that he knows that hey, if anything scares you or if you see anything or if whatever, just tell me and I'll take care of it. Because honestly, a lot of the times, spirits won't show themselves to people if people don't want to see them. That's not always the case. Sometimes spirits will show themselves to people even if you don't want to see them. But things like deities and spirit guides and things like that will not show themselves to him if they know that he doesn't want to see it. So it's also something that you could consult your spiritual team with.
I've been with my husband for 10 years. I started dating him while I was still going to church, and he was also still going to church. He is a Mennonite, raised Mennonite. And I think the biggest thing for us when I really started to get into my craft was communication. If I didn't communicate to him, hey, I'm saving this for something, it may have gotten thrown away. Or he would come across some of my things and be like, what the heck is this for? And I'd have to explain. My biggest advice is if your partner ever puts you or your craft down, that's a red flag.
Yeah, and that's a big thing as well. Because, your partner should leave for all of you, everything that you do. So don't let them put you down. Don't let them put your craft down. If they have questions, that's one thing, especially because in our society, we are told that witchcraft is evil. You're working with demons. Demons are bad. Blah, 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 give them space to ask questions. But yeah, communication really is key.
That's another thing. I haven't really put together a spiritual team because I have a hard time meditating.
That's fine too. So, what I would just say is make sure that you have protections set up around the house so that nothing that is not supposed to be there gets in. And that way, if your boyfriend sees something, you can have the knowledge that, okay, well, they must not be anything bad or evil because I got rid of all of the bad shit. And do regular cleansings and regular protections and things like that so that you know that there's nothing bad in the house. But that way, if he sees something, it's not anything bad or anything that's out to get you guys. Okay. Well, this has been a wild ride and I appreciate it. And this has been so much fun. Thank you guys so much for all of this. It just means the world to me to be able to do these and be able to talk with you guys. And I like stereo because I can hear you guys' voices. I will go back to live streaming on TikTok in addition to all of this eventually. I just got a message that my GoPuff order is on the way, so I gotta soon. Thank you guys so much for everything. Let's see what this says.
So one day I was chilling under my carport and I saw this little black figure. I think it was like a gremlin or something. And when it noticed I saw it, it hissed at me. Well, what it didn't expect was I growled the fuck back. It went back into its hole and I haven't seen it since.
Okay, so that's something you can tell your boyfriend. If you see something he doesn't like, just growl at it and it'll go away. Oh, that's great. I love that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. Like I said, all of my socials are in my TikTok link tree. So go to my TikTok, click my link tree, and click all the buttons. Next week, we'll be talking about working with demons, and it's going to be a ton of fun. I can't wait. So thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your night, and blessed be. Bye.